should be live. Double check everything as per usual. Hi, Kat. Yes, we are.
Okay,
Figured
perfect.
out.
Sharing time. Nope, that's the wrong video.
We are going to have a guest
Okay,
host
there we are.
of Fia today.
That's okay. We like the Fia.
She won't leave me alone. She crashed my other stream as well.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she did.
What a stinker. She's a needy girl today, huh?
It's true. It's true.
Okay.
Okay. Wait for a few people to show up.
Of course.
It's Lindsay.
Hi,
Hi,
Lindsay. Sorry I look like a total gremlin today. I just didn't care. I was tired.
I completely
It's Sunday. I'm tired.
Uh-huh. And you've just been doing a lot of streams this weekend, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a very stream-filled weekend because I did the manga panel for the Social Distance Book Fest, which was really a lot of fun, honestly. I had Aisha from over at Mama Loves Manga come join me, so it was just a really good time. She reads different things than me. She reads more of the, like, I would say queer manga, where there's, like, you know, more male and more female romances than I do, so I really wanted to have her on so that she can add more influence for that side and give different kinds of recommendations that I'm capable of giving because I haven't read them.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted things to be pretty spread out. I did try to get one other friend to come on that reads a lot more of the very popular battle shonen kind of stuff, but schedule-wise it just didn't quite work. Okay. But it was still a really good and fun discussion. I think we had a good time.
Good.
So yeah.
Okay. I suppose we could start.
For sure.
So, hi. I'm April, as per usual, and I am with Shae from Shae Geeks Out. We are going to be talking about this beautiful book. We have finally gotten to Cress in the Lunar Chronicles, book 3 in our reread series. We've only got one more next month.
But I know, and then we're not going to know what to do anymore.
I was thinking about it.
We haven't even thought about it, so we'll be brainstorming this next month.
Yeah. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments or in the description, underneath the description, whichever comment section you want to leave it in.
Wherever you want to leave them, DM us, whatever. Like, let us know.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're pretty up on retellings just because we both enjoy them anyway.
Right.
But you know, we've kind of not even like had things on our radar recently because we're like, we love the Lunar Chronicles.
And then we've also got Fia here, who's in need of a bath, so she's a little special today. But that's beside the point. So Cress, book 3 of the Lunar Chronicle series, we finally get to see Cress, Crescent Moon, and her satellite, her life. We get to follow them as they go and try and rescue Crescent and the subsequent result of the catastrophe that follows. I'm going to shoot it off to Shae to get her thoughts first, and then we'll start a very spoiled-filled discussion on everything we thought that happened in this book, because there was a lot.
Right. So I'm going to preface this before. I am the queen of spoilers when it comes to this series. So if you do not want to be spoiled for Cress, you probably shouldn't watch this video until you read it. So if you have not gotten to reading this one yet, I highly recommend waiting to watch this stream because basically we are spoiling a huge chunk of what's going to happen in the last book because of everything that falls into place within this book. So now that caveat's out of the way, I love Cress. This is still, after rereading it, I still think it's my favorite in the series. I enjoyed Scarlet a lot more this last time when we read it, but Cress is something very special. I think Cress's character, where she adds that naivete that was kind of almost missing from the series into the story, it just adds this extra beautiful layer to the story that I really thoroughly enjoyed. And we get a lot of time alone for Cress and Thorn, just like we have with the other characters. And I really enjoyed that we get to see their alone time. Because, Scarlet and Wolf had their alone time while they were trying to find Cinder. Cinder and Kai obviously had their alone time because no one else was involved yet. So the fact that she took the time out to give Cress and Thorn that alone time to build their romantic-ish relationship is fantastic. I loved it so very much. And just, there's so much that both of them add to the story in different ways. Cress in particular adds a ton to our story. She was basically sold off, like kidnapped, orphaned, because she was a shell. She had no lunar power. And so because of that, there is one thaumaturge that discovered that she has a brilliant mind and decided to save her from the other fate of the shells. And she puts her up in this satellite and just sequesters her away and, basically treats her like her property and makes her do whatever she wants. And, because Cress didn't know any better, she just kind of went with it. But she always felt wrong about it. I mean, she programmed a younger version of herself to talk to her because she was so alone. And that loneliness just resonated in a part of my soul that is just hard to describe. And the other thing that was really interesting is to watch Wolf go through life without Scarlet once he had Scarlet. She was so viciously ripped away from him that he was just doing everything in his power to get back to her. And it still guts me because he's just this precious being. He's such an amazing character. And, he might be that rough, grumbly type, but he's really just a teddy bear. And, those are the kinds of guys I love in, like, real life. That is my husband. My husband is grumbly and grumpy to everybody in this world but me. And sometimes my mom. He and my mom get along really well. But anyways, it's just, that's the thing that I like. So I like Wolf, but it's one of those things that to watch it so viscerally and to watch him mourn so visibly was hard but beautiful to read. I mean, the way Meyer wrote it, it was so well done. And watching Cinder, like, have to come into her true heritage after meeting all these people who have been waiting for her their entire lives was just humbling the way it was written. She gets to go and, like, become connected to these people and then later have them ripped away from her in such a visceral and violent way. Like, Marissa Meyer really was a genius with the way she brought this series together and just wove all the stories together. And Kai's still a butt. He's figuring it out, but he's been a butt for a long time. And I've always had mixed feelings about Kai, and those feelings have not changed in a reread. In the first book, I loved Kai, and I understood his initial, like, fear of Cinder and what she was, and who she could be to him. Like, that all made sense, but I always remember by the time I got to Cress, I'm like, Kai, you're an idiot, you should have figured this out by now. And so just the fact that it takes him so long to get to that was always very hard for me. But outside of that, I still love this. I still gave it 5 stars. And I've been rambling for like 10 minutes on my own. All right, your turn.
Yeah. So, there's something about this book. I think the way she takes the Rapunzel fairy tale. And I feel like, I don't know what it is about this book, but I feel like this one is the most true to the original, because
I would agree with that.
Yeah, you have this Mother Gothel figure in the thaumaturge.
I saw the Mother Gothel a lot more this time than I did the first time.
And then you have Thorn, who loses his eyesight, which is, the prince who rescues Rapunzel when he falls into the thorn and blinds himself. So you have all those little elements that come together in a way that I think is just magical. And I was trying to remember when Disney did Rapunzel, what year that was.
When she did Tangled?
Yeah.
When they did Tangled? Oh.
Because there's something so eerily similar between Tangled and Thorn and Crest.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
With this guy who could be a good guy, but does a lot of things for very selfish reasons. But,
right.
But then you have Crest over here who's like justifying all of these things he does because of these little minute reasons. And then Thorn is like, Well,
How did you get there, woman?
I don't think I did, but I did so you see the shift in Thorn from this very selfish human being, and then he's blinded and he has to rely on pretty much everybody else. And then at the very end, you have that very I normally hate it in books where in the middle of an epic battle,
They kiss?
yes, and they get
Yes.
distracted by this romance. But the
But
way
the way it's written, oh my gosh, it's hard to not swoon. I'm a grown woman who's happily married, and I still swoon because of the way it's written.
well,
Oh, Super Roommate let us know. Tangled was 2010.
okay.
So I think Cress came after that.
Yeah, it did.
So I do think she did take some inspiration
There
from that
might have
for the
been
characters.
influences. But I mean but Thorn was created before Tangled.
I
Maybe.
guess that.
No. When was Scarlet written?
Let's see.
I'm trying to remember the
Because
timeline for all the books. Because if Thorn was introduced,
this was 2014.
okay, so maybe
So
yeah,
it was
Thorn.
probably 2012. So I think it was after.
Okay, so
But he
maybe
very much has that Flynn Rider feel to him.
yeah, but
Eugene, however, whatever you want to call him.
right. So there, I think I accept the makeout session a little bit more in that final battle.
But he did promise her, so he had to own up to his promise.
No, it's because of that lead up to it, that promise of, hey, I've never been kissed. I'd like to be kissed before I die.
I promise to kiss you before you die.
And then that promise because of when she was delusional and just spouting everything that came to her mind. Because there's something. Cress has a lot of mental relationship kind of issues because she has been holed up in this satellite for how many years now. And
Yeah.
so it's hard for her to kind of relate to people and kind of not just word vomit. She doesn't have a gate, in other words.
Yeah, her filter is just broken.
It's gone. And that's what makes her absolutely
And I don't think
adorable.
she ever had it necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, she
living by yourself.
There was no reason for her to have it. I mean,
No.
the way she grew up, it was messed up.
She only had to behave around the one person.
Right.
Other than that, she had conversations with herself for all intents and purposes.
Right. And then Lindsay here, she's like, the first book in the series that made me cry. Yes, I was actually just getting to that because
I didn't even touch that because I knew you'd want to.
Yeah, because with the whole storyline of Cress, we actually finally learned that the Doctor is Crescent's father. And the fact that the very last moment of his life is when Cress actually found out. So Cress really never had the ability to
even get to know him.
all of this and realize that, hey, I wasn't just abandoned because of what I was. There was a little bit more going on there. And the way it came out and the way the Doctor is sacrificing himself for all this stuff because he does get the disease, because at this point the disease has morphed into something that can affect even Lunars. Not necessarily shells, but Lunars with power. And we're starting to make the connection that shells are actually the ones that may save us from all of this. And they are the pieces of society that they're not earthens, so Earth doesn't like them. They don't have powers, so the Lunars don't like them.
So they're treated like cyborgs as second-class citizens, where they can just be treated that one way. And that is something that Kai did that I was really happy about.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that it
I hate that it took what it did to get in there, but
there's a couple things in this book. So yeah, that heartbreaking moment when we realize that the Doctor is now going to die, and he confines himself, and Cress finally finds out all of the things, and then we lose the Doctor, but we gain all of this information, and just watching Cress trying to process all of that, because you can't really love someone you don't know.
Right.
He gave her genetic material, and that's pretty much it at this point. But he has loved her for his whole life because he's known. So it's this weird point where you're like a little gut wrenched, but at the same
Because at the same time, you see her go through it and ask, I didn't cry. Is something wrong with me? I didn't cry. My father just dead.
right,
But at the same time, you're sitting here, it's like, honey, you didn't even know him.
right.
You can't emote for someone you don't know, typically.
You grieve a little different for someone.
Oh, yeah.
No, you should, but at the same time, you don't know 100%, which is interesting to see in the book. We have two different, well, technically three different people grieving. We have
Mm-hmm.
Cress, who's at a different stage with her sister because she's had three books to slowly come to the point of anger. And then we have
You mean Cinder?
yeah,
You had
that's
said Cress.
Cinder, sorry. We have Cinder who's gone through three books with her sister. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have Wolf who just lost.
Who's very viscerally grieving for
Mhm. And
Scarlet.
he just goes blank.
He just shuts down. It's, my baby.
And then we have Cress who is trying to figure out what emotion she's even supposed to have. And so you get those three different styles of grief that are coming together in this book, and I like how all of them are completely different.
I do too, because no one grieves the same.
Right.
Everybody individually, like even within the same families, like people grieve differently. And I think Marissa Meyer did a fantastic job of depicting different types of grief. Because I guess you could say, in a way, Kai is grieving over all of the information, not only for his dad, but losing the one person he thought meant something to him, losing them in a different way. But because, Cinder had started to mean something to him.
Well,
and all of a sudden it's ripped away because of information and physical distance.
Well, and he's
for political reasons.
Yeah, he's not even given a chance to grieve anything. I mean, as soon as his dad dies, he has to become emperor and deal with everything. And then he's starting this budding friendship with Cinder. And then all of a sudden that's ripped away from him. And he can't quite process how things got to this point.
Because the information he has doesn't equate with the information he had gathered on his own. And so he's like, I don't understand. What is this?
Yeah. No, Kai is we kind of touched a little bit on Kai and how kind of go back and forth on.
I mean, he's a butt.
Yeah.
Like, he's a butt. He's young, but he has a lot thrown at him and he's doing his best with it. So we can't fully fault him for being a butt.
Yeah, because he's trying to do right by
once he gets all of the information by this book.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how he reacts to that situation, I am appreciative of. I will say that. But it sets up things to go very weirdly in the next book, right. From what I remember. Yeah. So I remember chucking Winter across the room, guys, so fair warning.
Yeah, so Kai, he's this poor man who's kind of like shoved in the corner, but is expected to make right decisions by people without all the information. And so there are points where he does things and makes decisions about things and comes off very distant because of what he is, what he has to do, and it's really, really hard to like him. And then finally you get him and Cinder back in the same room together. And of course, they're going to butt heads because Cinder doesn't have time. She needs him to just shut up and listen to her and just do what she says. Whereas he's like, I literally can't do that because there are other people on the line besides just you, and I don't understand where you're coming from right now. I have no context. Where you're sitting there reading it and you're like, but if you just, everything would go so much easier if you just, it's fine. It's fine. Just do it. So that moment.
Trust your heart, Sir Kai.
That moment where we have to knock out Kai and kidnap him is kind of hilarious.
It really kind of is. And then you have his advisor who's like, what the crap are you doing?
Right.
And she's like, I promise, he won't die. He'll be safe. I'm protecting him. This is for his own good and for the good of everybody. So deal with it.
Yeah. So there's these little moments in this book where there's just these bumbles and these one-liners that you have to accept and laugh over. And I think Marissa Meyer does that well. She gets a lot of that angst in with that humor. And that's why people love this series so much.
Right. The one thing we haven't touched on at all is our queen, Miss Aiko. And Aiko finally gets a body back thanks to Thorn. How all of that goes down gets confusing for Cress and Thorn. But he does get Aiko a new android body, and Aiko loves it, and it is just... It's so choice, and her reaction to everything is fantastic, and just how all of that plays out. Like, again, this book feeds my soul on so many levels.
Right.
And Aiko is she's just best girl. I don't care what anybody says. She just is. She's seriously just one of the most self-aware characters in the entire series, and I love her for that.
Right. She is the piece of this story that helps you move on with the story when you know
she's that voice of reason for Cinder too. Yeah. But she helps calm Cinder down, get her really thinking about it. Lindsay put it right. Aiko is queen.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a reason why her focus is on fashion and looks and just the overall drama of life, because if it was any place else, this book wouldn't be quite as multifaceted as it is, because you'd be stuck just worrying and worrying and worrying and worrying, and she's a relief. She is the glass of water in this whole thing. And I love the fact you have the typical budding romance angst with the procurement of said body for Aiko, when Thorn is literally playing that bad guy part, but with a good heart.
Uh-huh.
And
he's always the bad guy with the good heart.
Right. But I mean,
and that's why Cress loves him.
Yeah, this is probably the first time when he actually means it, and he isn't doing it for a selfish reason.
He's not doing it for himself, he's doing it for someone else.
Exactly. And I think that's where that growth starts, that Cinder kind of kicked off with her very false breakdown of his personality.
Yes. But yes, in general, I still love this book. It's until I read Winter again, I'm going to call Cress my favorite, because there's so many layers to the story and so many things that are dealt with within the story, like family dynamics and grief and all of these other beautiful things that are wrapped up in these fairy tales so well that she's just a master with this series. And this is why I love this series over the Renegades, because I feel like the Renegades is much more formulaic as opposed to this series. Because though you have these fairy tales woven through it, they're woven through in such a genius way that you can't help but appreciate what she's doing. Yeah. So that's a personal opinion of mine. I still like the Renegade series, do not get me wrong, but this series will just always be superior because of that.
There's definitely something magical about this one. It is still one of my favorites of this series.
Then again, I read the Reckoner series first, and I think that forever tainted me.
Yeah, well, see, and that's a little bit of the struggle sometimes I have with the Renegade series, is comparing it to the Reckoners.
And Reckoners came before,
yeah,
so
it's not fair, but you know, what can you do when you read them in that order?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the introduction, the final actual interaction with Winter. We
didn't even talk about Winter and Jason at all.
We got to see Winter in here, and her friend Jason, which will come into play in Winter in a way that I really, really enjoy. But I do remember when I first met Winter, the first time I read through Cress.
Yeah.
The way Winter acts, I compared her to Drusilla from Buffy.
Okay.
Just because she has an insane sanity. She makes sense if you know how to translate her.
Right. And the thing is,
I really like
she that. Going back and reading it again, I feel like she almost acts insane on purpose. Mm-hmm. To protect herself more than anything else. But more information on that will come in the future. But yeah, for the book club, we are not going to be reading Fairest. But if you want a lot of context for Winter, I do recommend taking a minute to go through it. It's about 200 pages. It's not too long. it's meant to tell Livana's story, but I feel like it helps. I remember it helping me understand Winter's character a lot better once I got into the
Yeah.
book. So if you've got a minute, I do recommend reading Ferris before you jump into Winter. But if not, it's okay. You can jump in without it. It is not necessary. It is canon if you want it, but it's not necessary to enjoy the story.
Yeah, you will get a little bit more of the story, and it will start to make sense if you don't pick it up. But that book, it sets up Cinder and Jason in Winter
Yeah.
in a way that further explains how this triad will soon coexist.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm. And Jason, I liked.
I have a love-hate relationship with him and Cress. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
well, because you know his heart is completely wrapped around Winter, and so he's viewing everything through that lens. And
Mm-hmm.
the miscommunication or the misunderstanding between Jason and Cinder because of him always referring to Cat, um, referring to Winter as his princess, and
Yeah.
Cinder misinterprets that, and then later Jason finally realizes the error of, well, maybe I should have stuck it out with Cinder because whoops.
Yeah.
I like seeing all of that. I like the introduction of Winter. Winter really kind of starts to round things out for me.
Exactly. So with that, our May read is going to be Winter by Marissa Meyer, the final book in the series. That live show will be on my channel on the last Sunday. I want to say it's the 31st of
It is.
May.
Uh huh.
So it's the last day of May. We will be talking about Winter. It's a beefy one. These are tabs for our buddy read. They're extensive. April and I tend to buddy read this with Lindsay in the comments when we read it. But it's over 800 pages, so do prepare yourself. It's going to be a long one, but I promise it's worth it. I remember I read this for the first time within a 36-hour period because I just had to read it. I
Yep.
had to know. And I just could not stop. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So, with that said, put that on your calendars. Same time, 3 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Central. And yes, we very much are looking forward to talking about the series in its entirety once we get there. And maybe we'll chat about a couple of the short stories that help flesh out some of the things at the end.
Yeah, because I know we all love Aiko, and if I remember right in the short stories, I feel like there was a story that was the start of Aiko.
Uh-huh.
Um, that was
It was
a little
Ico's
mermaid.
origin stories in there, and
Yeah.
we also get an epilogue to the end of this book, which feeds my soul. And yes,
Yes. So, and I think we're about out of time for today.
yes, we are.
We've been going for about 30 minutes. I
Hmm.
don't know if there's
We do
any.
tend to keep these pretty brief,
Right.
so
I don't know if there's anybody else in the chat who has any thoughts or opinions they want to share or any questions they want to throw at us. But if not, this will probably be where we end it for today because I know people have things that they want to do. It's gorgeous here.
yeah. I actually went for a drive before the live show. I'm like, I got to get out of the house and enjoy this
Oh yeah.
sunshine a little bit.
That was
That's what I
needed.
do for myself in isolation. I take myself for a car ride.
Yep. I think that's how most of us
I
do
put on an
it.
audiobook, get in my car, go for a drive, and it's all good.
Okay. Well, with that being said, thank you
Yes.
guys for joining us. It's been great fun. And of course, go check out Shae's channel over at Shae Geeks Out. She is wonderful. I love her videos. She does a lot of things with manga now, which I love all the things she does. So go subscribe to
Though,
her.
like, this week I've got, like, an unboxing video that'll come out later today. I've got my Smudathon vlog. I've got a reaction vlog for a manga series this week. Plus my normal, like, reread roundup, wrap up, TBR. Like, it's a lot this week, guys.
All the
Sorry. All the things.
And I have a basement that hopefully will be finished in the next couple of weeks. It's supposed to be done by this Friday, but I have a feeling that's not going to happen because there's too much to be done. But in the next several
Depending on
weeks.
how many people come in every day, it might get done quicker.
Maybe. Fingers crossed.
But there's still like paint drying stuff that has to happen. So
Right. And then eventually I will have a whole book organizing video and stuff like that out, which
yay.
really excited with all the new shelf space I will be getting. So stay tuned for that. Subscribed if you aren't. Plug in for myself, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I heart all of your faces and I hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.